Welcome to the Time Advantage, the podcast for mid-career professionals who want to reach senior leadership without burning out. In today's episode, it's going to be a little bit different. Instead of speaking to somebody looking back at the journey, we're speaking with someone in motion. As a project manager, Millat Ahmed is leading major infrastructure projects in the UK, navigating complexity, and is looking for the next step to position himself as a senior project manager. If you've ever wondered what it looks like to build senior leadership identity before the title changes, this conversation is for you. Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed in this episode is entirely our own and do not represent any organization or companies that we may be affiliated with or connected with. And this is purely based on professional experience and personal insight. Hi, Millet. Thank you for joining the podcast. How are you doing?
Hi there. No, I'm very well, thank you very much, and thanks for inviting me to participate in your podcast today.
Let's kick off with some context. Can you tell us what kind of challenges or responsibilities you're leading at the moment?
Yeah, of course. I think this podcast has obviously come at a very challenging time for me at the moment. Now, a lot of my work, I guess a lot of construction work in the UK is heavily reliant on um, government funding or subsidies. And as you know, these past few years, have been very challenging towards the sort of in terms of the UK economy, inflation, and now tariffs. And it's about our new norm has become dealing with different government opinions, challenges, policies, and also external factors such as tariffs. When you look on the news, most of the time people are going to look at um, cost of your day-to-day expenses or your day-to-day shopping going up, but it's far deeper than that. You've got construction materials which are sourced from around the world, and at the moment, it's just about making sure that we are not just we, but even myself, I'm providing continued leadership and consistency to those that work around me and ensuring that there is a clear path to, what we are working towards. That's what I would say is kind of like the main challenge.
Is at what point in your career did you realize you needed to actively position yourself for the next level and not just wait to be recognized?
That's a good question. I think there's something just called natural progression. And for me, when my day-to-day job, when I was working sort of in the role, below where I am at now, and I realized that I've achieved everything I need to achieve in this role. Um, I'm the best at what I do. And at some points, I was even able to make decisions that seniors would make. Um, and that's when I kind of said, thought to myself, well, then it's only natural that I step into a role where I am, making the decisions. I am the person who, would be responsible for larger programs of work because ultimately, as a natural progression in your career, you don't want to just be standing still and you don't want to be kind of, get complacent in what you're doing. So I'd say yeah, quite early on, I got my few years of experience in I'm a civil engineer as well as a project manager. So I
Oh,
initially started off as a civil engineer. Interestingly, early on in my career, just to get into the industry, it was very difficult for me because a lot of people would resonate, from our background. We're not born with a silver spoon, we have to um, work that extra bit harder. So my experience was I wasn't really financially my parents, obviously did their best, but we had our limitations. So I kind of went out and got myself a CSCS card.
mhm.
And this is when I was at university because I was actually studying part-time as well due to, financial reasons. And
Mhm.
what I would do is I would work as a laborer on site just to kind of get that experience that you wouldn't really get in university um, lectures or as a graduate. And I knew that if I had these bits of experience from the start, that would put me at an advantage when it comes to being selected, or being chosen to take on engineering roles in the future. And that's what's kind of springboarded me. And I've always kind of been thinking a few steps ahead of where I should be. And I think in answer to your question, I was thinking quite early on. I always think early in terms of where do I want to be next? Where do I want to be next? Where do I see myself in 5 years? And that's kind of like how I work, is more just as a company has strategic goals and 5 year plans, or all the rest of it. It's important to have one yourself and not let external factors put you off these things. You've got to kind of be stick to the critical path, as they say, and try and achieve those goals. So that's what I'd say. How I work, it wasn't like a flat, a light bulb moment or something where I was like, oh yeah, do you know what? I actually think I should be, in senior management. It's just something that um takes planning and preparation, so you're ready to take on those extra responsibilities, that extra, workload.
That's really good to hear that. And I would say I completely resonate with what you're saying in the sense that if you don't have a plan, then you plan to fail. And if you don't have a plan, then you basically become a tool, rightly or wrongly, for better or for worse, in other people's plans. So you want to prioritize what is value for you in terms of your own career. I really did resonate with what you said there. So, what practical steps did you start taking to become seen as a strategic leader beyond just delivering well?
So I I positioned myself in a way where I was visible, and not just my work, but even myself visible in all the right places with all the right people, if that makes sense. So
Mm.
I would even if there's not a need to be in certain monthly reporting meetings or project committee meetings, I would always put myself forward to be in those places, knowing that I need to know what's going on in these board level meetings in order for me to be a good strategic leader going forward. So one of the steps I did was I would always put myself in places. Maybe I don't necessarily need to be in them. I could do with this free time, or do whatever I wanted to. But I feel like making those kind of sacrifices that I can see that my leaders are doing as their job role, and that's exactly what I want to do, then I would need to kind of act in that way before I become that. So that's always one, piece of advice. Someone said once, you should always dress, for for the role that you want to be in, and not that the role that you are in. In terms of, when we were graduates, a good friend of mine used to come into work dressed really smart, with all his suit, and we were just kind of basic graduate roles. I don't think anyone was kind of paying that much attention, but when he said that to me, that really made sense. Like, that's the image that people will have of you when you're going for an interview, when you're applying for those next roles. So automatically there's that perception that you're kind of doing. So in terms of practical steps, like I've said, is try and position yourself in places, extracurricular, be in meetings. You might not need to be in them, but we all work in the industry where, if you just, all you have to do is ask, do you mind if I pop into this meeting? Can I be added? There's nothing secret going on. You're more than welcome to be in these meetings and take notes. The other thing I did was, obviously there is an element of learning, self-learning, or whatever you want to call it. So you can attend certain courses. I kind of started to work towards my qualifications, making sure I had the right qualifications to match the role. And again, this is not something that you can do during work hours. You have to put in the time. At the moment, I'm actually going for my civil engineering chartership, which I should have done years ago. But again, it's about finding that balance of work, work, life, and everything else. But Alhamdulillah, I've come to a place now that I'm comfortable in applying for that chartership. I know I'm probably confident in gaining it. I've got the experience, I've got the knowledge, and previous to this, but working in the project management field, what I started to do was, okay, I've pivoted from a civil engineer technical background to more project management. So what do I need? I went and got Prince 2, I got APM, project management qualifications, like health and safety, um, CDM, NEC contracts. So, I don't want to put, like make this answer too technical for someone who may not have, that insight. But yeah, I'd say these are the kind of steps that help me take the next, go on to the next level in terms of strategic leadership.
Was there a project or moment where you felt this is a turning point for me as a leader?
Yeah, I think I guess you learn the most in adversity. So um, there was a project where without linking too much to like the company name and whatever, but it was something that it was under one government. It was almost like the flavor of the month, and then another government sort of came in and kind of just completely cancelled everything and all the funding. However, we were still carrying on and sort of with business as usual, and obviously those in the project management field would understand that there is we follow like a project sort of stage gate review process,
Mhm.
and there was months and months of work that was put into achieving a positive outcome to sort of move into the next stage, achieve the funding and everything else. And it was almost like a sucker punch when we'd ticked all the boxes, all the work was, done really hard work, hours and hours, only to be then sort of told, okay, this accounts for nothing now because we will not be progressing the project. And I had, um, what really got me was I had a team of, individuals working under me, and I really managed to motivate them, get them, all pulling in one direction, get everything over the line, only to have to give them this bad news that, we
Mhm.
won't be progressing. And also still keep them motivated, still, keep them coming into work and all the rest of it. So it was a really difficult time for me, but also a turning point in terms of, do you know what, this is new. We're always used to, being able to sort of point the finger and all the rest. And even I could have even done it at this point, but it was about a time of sit, trying to be the leader that they would want me to be, and also provide support and strength. And yeah, that was a big turning point for me.
How do you manage your time and energy across strategy, delivery, and all the people management comes with your role?
Yeah, time management is one of the most difficult skills I'd say in our industry, because a lot of the time it's almost like a firefighting kind of role, it's just a day
Mhm.
to day. But for me, it's um it's about trying to stay ahead of the curve. So I always have that forward outlook. So in terms of strategy and delivery, I know if I keep on top of certain meetings, certain dates, milestones, that they will always kind of be there, that they would always be in those places. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's all about being ahead of the game, being ahead of the curve into, trying to manage what you can manage. And then when it comes to like the people management side of things, which is always the most difficult. You'd be expecting someone, someone who's working to deliver certain slides for a PowerPoint presentation who's, called in sick, who's or someone who's not able to, achieve their tasks and all the rest of it. This is where you kind of you use your flex, you use that time that you've created for yourself by managing all those things earlier,
Mm.
that you can move things around, you can, shuffle resources and still achieve the outcomes that you need to achieve. Almost like saying, never let it get to that stage where, you're like a headless chicken, or, you're trying to like make everything come together, at the same time. Be in a place where you are always giving yourself a bit of leeway and a bit of float so that you can think clearly and deliver what needs to be delivered.
Mm-hmm. I think what's coming out of what you're saying is those strategies that you're implementing in terms of the forward planning builds in buffer time that then you can use kind of like as when things don't go to plan and
Mhm.
need additional time, you can then use that buffer time to, still stay on target.
Yeah. And the other thing is, and sorry if I'm becoming philosophical here, but I
Mhm.
feel like a normal working day, um, and this is something that I learned from, experienced peers that I worked with in the industry who are maybe not like from my background, or maybe kind of are the typical background that you would see in the construction industry. But just take your work seriously. Like you've got 7.5 hours, 8 hours in the day. So what if you need to work an extra half an hour? I feel like we have this mentality sometimes of, oh, I'm not going to give them any extra. If you die today, they'll replace you tomorrow. And it's not all about that. It's just give your best in what you have. There's always enough time in the day, I think, where these questions don't need to come up. Give your all in your work, do the hours that you are prescribed to do, that you're paid to do, and which you should be, which is obligatory upon us to fulfill this time. So give it the time, and you'd find that you're never, you're not a person who's stretched, or, whatever terminology you want to use. You will find that actually everything is happening in good time and you are able to deliver. I understand, yeah, sometimes there's some weekends that you might get a call or whatever, but on the whole, the working practices that we have in the UK, and I'm just talking for the UK now, is that you, even like director level, board level, everyone gets a holiday, everyone gets time off, but at the end of the day, you are paid to deliver certain expectations. So deliver on that. No point of, to have, if you need to have a shorter lunch, so what? As long as you've got had something to eat. I know it might be controversial, or some people may say, oh no, I'd rather have a balance, or I'd rather go gym halfway through my working day, whatever. I get it, we all, have certain ways of working. But for me personally, I would say is you're at work, your priorities, you're getting paid to do a job. So make the most of those hours. So you're not rushing around in the end. You've got a strategy in place. You're doing your day-to-day delivery, and the people management kind of looks after itself in terms of there's nothing you can plan for in that. You'll have your regular one-to-ones. If you're lucky enough to be blessed with a good team, you will it'd be easy for you, but there are times when you're not as fortunate, and you need to, maybe build in a buffer and see what you can do. So
Mm.
that's my, um, that's how I would say it. And I think I've kind of, um, I don't know if you might follow up a question, but I think some of it I might have answered in what I've just said as well.
I think what you're saying is having a pragmatic approach while realizing that you are employed to give certain deliverables,
Hmm.
and there may be times on the odd cases where you may have to go that bit extra, but it's about taking a pragmatic approach to things. And that's what I'm taking away from what you're saying.
Yeah, and also I'd just like to finalize by saying like I said, I've worked with director level, colleagues, and I know that for 90% of the time, there's enough hours in the day, there's enough hours in the week to get what you need to get done.
Mm-hmm. What productivity habits or systems have helped you stay focused under pressure, especially on large scale, high stakes projects?
So I'd say one of the things, productivity habits, calendar management is a big one for me. I know it might sound simple, but it's just about making sure that your calendar is up to date and is something that is true to its word. Like sometimes you'll find people who have multiple meetings or clashes and you don't know which one they may be attending or not. The main thing is have a clear and concise sort of weekly planner. I sort of double down with. I don't even have just an Outlook. I have my personal calendar, a sort of diary which I use. I even write in, just like handwrite because I feel like that gives me um increased impetus. I always create a to-do list, whether it's even in my personal life or even for
Mm-hmm.
work. I'm just saying it's even gone as far as my personal life where, you know, just write down or make a note on your phone of what you need to do, what you need to achieve. And in terms of like focused under pressure, I mean, I just take things as they come, I'm kind of like the type of person who kind of just gets on with it. I've large scale or high stakes projects, they're kind of like my bread and butter now. So, um, initially, yeah, they were a bit tough for me. But for now, I kind of like just ensure that I'm organized. I think that's the best thing I can say is I try and stay organized. Outside of this, maybe things to sort of help me um stay focused or kind of relieve some of that pressure. Outside, I'd definitely like to go on long walks and playing football once or twice a week. I'm also mid-30s, so I can't play that much without getting injured. um but yeah, but I would say key is having some extracurricular activities as well. And faith is a big part for me as well, just sort of if I can a few times a day kind of um be in prostration, it kind of helps me ground myself, I'd say. So those are the things here. I'm sorry I don't have like a lean Sigma 6 answer or anything like that.
Yeah, I see.
It's not something that, yeah, I do. Yeah.
So, from what you're saying, what I understood is you need to have a system that works for you. And you did highlight the point of your faith playing a big part, which I can completely relate to. What's one mindset shift you've had to make to operate at a senior level, even before the formal promotion?
This is a good one. And the main mindset shift that I got was don't rely on anyone. You, you know, you have to get things done. So almost like, you know, I know there's an old saying like pull your finger out or whatever, but there was a time when I'll always be like, oh, do you know, this happened because of this reason or that reason, and you can always find all these different excuses. When it comes to senior level, the buck stops with you. There does come a point where you can't go and, start pointing fingers or whatever. It ultimately does stop with you. So you have to make sure you have the mindset that you're still not a person who's looking for excuses or all these reasons, and sometimes just say, yeah, you know what? We were meant to deliver this month. There's obviously you know, reasons that are beyond your control, but you have to take it, own it, and see how you can improve it. And not always kind of see if someone can help you find a way out or anything else. It's just about taking responsibility. Yeah, I feel like I've summed it up there. It's taking responsibility for, whatever that you are doing and making sure that you're not looked upon or you don't make yourself to be a person who's sort of using everything else as an excuse. So my main mindset shift was that I own everything that I do, and put put my work into that.
Mm. Ownership.
Yep, ownership. Yeah.
In a large organization, it's easy to get buried in the doing. How have you approached visibility and being seen as a strategic voice?
You can only be as visible as you want to be. Offer
Mm.
to do, in there's like we have calling all hands or town hall meetings. They're always looking for ways to fill these meetings up. Senior leadership always wants someone to do a presentation on health and safety or even well-being or like let's say a best example, we come from a Muslim background. Ramadan came, give a 10-minute presentation on Ramadan. um like find all these extracurricular activities that are taking place in companies. There's all these company networks and so on and so forth. So you're doing your job, but join, like I'm very big on the environment. I strongly believe in preserving the earth, preserving what has been created so beautifully for us, and we are destroying it. But start making yourself visible in these settings because you'd see that people actually see another side to you. Just being a strategic voice isn't someone who just goes in and, you know, does like talks work related things. If you look at a lot of these leaders, you'd see that they're very multifaceted. They'll be into hiking or cycling. It doesn't have to be a commonality between us. Doesn't always have to be going to the pub and we're feeling isolated. There's other things that people will have in common. So get into those meetings, get into your monthly reporting meetings, committee meetings, whatever form they take in. Start having an input. Speak to your senior leaderships team or your managers and ask them. They're more than willing to say, if you tell them, do you mind if I report on the financials this month? Go and do it. Do you mind if I take ownership of the risk register? Do it. Program. Like the options are endless. We have very little um, from my personal experience anyway, there's very little that other than ourselves that are stopping us from exposing ourselves and getting to those places. A lot of the time people complain, oh, there's a lack of diversity and everything else. But I just think the people that do get to those places, I've seen the journey that they've taken. I've seen, how they've made themselves visible, the work that they've put in, they've broken those barriers. We all have anxiety around speaking in public, and I know it's not easy. Um, even I like sometimes have these sort of anxious moments. But if you're serious about this career, if it's something that you do want to progress, these are the steps that need to be taken. You can't just be those people, just quietly sit there, deliver your day-to-day tasks, and think that that will be enough. Hmm?
And the final question is this. For someone earlier in the journey, maybe managing projects but struggling to get noticed, what advice would you give them about preparing for the next step?
So my advice would be work, try and do your day-to-day job, but also do the job of the next step above you to prepare yourself for what's coming. Start to taking that knowledge, taking that experience, speak to those above you, speak to those who you feel comfortable speaking to about getting advice. There's enough people who are out there willing to provide, that support and mentorship. So take advantage of it. And yeah, sorry, and be vocal. Unfortunately, it's a tough one. We're not raised or brought up or we don't come from the privileged schools that provide us the tools and experience to kind of be confident in ourselves. I understand this. I've been there myself. I've been to, I didn't go to the, like a top 10 university either, something, kind of like just scrape through what I could. But now's the time to step up. And it may seem hard at first, but once you've done it, um, you realize how easy it is. And ultimately, a 5 minute presentation or a 10-minute presentation, or you've come out in a meeting and you've said a few words, within 30 seconds you've forgotten about anyway. People move on, people like genuinely don't care about things that you say as much as you think they do. They extract whatever information is important to them, and then you're just another person. So I know it may not be, you know, something that people love to have lasting impacts and all the rest of it, but um, at the end of the day, you were just someone who gave a presentation and then moved on. So that's the kind of advice I'd give, and I hope it's even one person might find it useful and help them along the way.
That's very useful. People often overthink that what they say or do, people will constantly remember that. And that's not to shy away from saying or doing the wrong thing, but
Yep,
in terms of what people would remember, and they often forget. People have short memories.
yep,
So the interview has been very helpful. I mean, thank you for letting us inside your journey and showing what intentional growth really looks like from the inside. For those of you listening, this is the kind of leadership story we don't hear enough of. Not a highlight reel from the top, but real insight from someone doing the work and wanting to grow with purpose. Make sure you follow the time advantage for more episodes that meet you exactly where you are and help you move forward the smart, sustainable way. Remember, small shifts create a big impact. Till next time.